Recording.
Yes, yeah, I'll get that up.
Okay, we're live. All right. There we go. Roll call, please.
Mayor Knows,
Here.
Mr. Rambelang,
Here.
Ms. Greenfield,
Here.
Ms. McCready,
Nice.
who's here?
She's connecting.
Still connecting.
Who's here? Mr. McQueen,
I'm here.
Mr. Ribeiro,
Here.
Ms. Zamara.
Here.
Notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News and Courier News, filed with the municipal clerk and posted on municipal bulletin board on December 27th, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we do not have any presentations tonight. We do have some minutes to approve from February 28th and March 14th. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the minutes from March 15th and February 28th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. We now have our first open session. So if anyone from the public would like to speak, now is the time. Please raise your hand with the icon, or if that doesn't work, do this. And please give your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anthony will hold up a timer to keep track of how long you're speaking. So would anyone from the public like to be heard? See if I see buttons. And go up. You see any, Anthony?
No, I don't see anybody.
Okay. Then I will close the public session. We will have another one at the end of the meeting if anyone wants to say something then.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I just got my video and audio working. I don't mind waiting until the end, but I did have something, so I was just having a little technical difficulty. I don't want to hold you guys up.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was recommended to join by Chief of Police Kevin Valentine. My name is Peter Roselli. I'm the pastor of a church called King of Kings Worship Center. We meet at the Fellowship Deaconry in Basking Ridge. After many years running a cafe in downtown Bernardsville called Port City Java, across the street from the train station, and was involved with the Chamber of Commerce and helped run Unity Day for many years. After the financial crisis, we ended up getting a different property and then moving down to the Deaconry. But we've opened up a food pantry, and due to the current events in the economy, and because of our experience in the town, we know that there's a pretty large population of people that need help, even though that's not necessarily the reputation that people think of when you think of Bernardsville. And I just asked Chief Valentine about potentially using the Kiwanis Park right on Pine Street, where the baseball field is, as a place where we could bring our truck, pop open, set up a table, give out the food, and pack it all back up and then head out. We're affiliated with Feeding Hands Food Pantry in Somerville. We're running a location for them here now at the Deaconry, and we also plan to expand that location at the Deaconry. But right now, it's up and running. It's just not fully built out the way we would want it to be. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Actually, we have you on the agenda a little
I'm
later
sorry. Okay.
on to talk about your proposal. So
Great.
Thank you for giving us the background. That was a good explanation.
I'll mute myself.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to ordinances. Gina, would you like, oh no, I have to open the public hearing. We already introduced this. Okay, so I will open the public hearing on ordinance 2022-1911, appropriating the sum of $60,000 for the Bernardsville Public Library Building, public restrooms renovation. This is a donation from a resident to get this project done. So I think that's very generous. And would anyone like to be heard on this ordinance? I am not seeing any, so I will close the public hearing. Now, Gina, would you like to move it?
Yes, sure. I move to pass ordinance 2022-1911 on final reading and adopt as published.
I'll second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Ambelang,
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Mr. Ribeiro,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to resolutions, we have 2271 through 2288. Any that you'd like to discuss separately?
Well, obviously, I think 2288 is going to come out because we have a presentation, correct, Mayor?
I said 8 to 87.
Ah, sorry, I misheard you.
I think that's what I said anyway. Yeah, because 88, we're going to do that one separately. But any of the previous ones, if anyone wants to discuss any of the items. I had a question from Charlie Zavalik earlier in the day about the 2275, about the 63 Bernards Ave property as to how we were financing that. And that is from our affordable housing fund. So it's not an extra tax or bond or anything. It's part of our fund that we have set aside for that purpose. Other than that, I think most are pretty straightforward. So would someone like to move them?
I'll move
Yes,
them.
Mayor. Go ahead, Gina.
I move that resolutions 22-71 to 22-87 be adopted.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Zamara,
Yes.
Mr. Ribeiro,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield,
Yes.
Mr. Ambelang.
Yes.
Okay, now we do 2288. This is the introduction of the 2022 municipal budget. Big thank you to our finance committee, to Leslie Robeson and our administrator, Tom Cherniecki, for all the hours put into this. This was a very intense effort. We got a whole budget book, all the details, spent a lot of time working on making this a budget that we felt would give residents what they need, but also help them save, not overburden them with taxes. So I will turn it over to whoever is doing this presentation. Is it Tom or Chad?
I'm going to start it, Mayor.
Hey,
So let me continue to thank you, because I don't think the public and even all of council, if you're not involved in the sausage making, as Al would say, understands how many hours Tom and Leslie put into this process. It starts typically in November, but it never really stops. We also asked Tom and Leslie to do something new this year, which we'll talk about as we go through the budget, which require even more thanks than usual. We can go to the next slide, Tom. So as we went into this budget cycle, there were a few priorities that we talked about as a finance committee quite often. And I'll start from left to right. Number one was manage critical budget trends, which includes things like direct costs of the borough and the way that our cost structure is growing from year to year. We also were looking to restore our cash for capital projects to pre-2018 levels. For a variety of reasons, our cash for capital project fund got spent down to the point where I believe when I joined council, there was less than $50,000 in that fund. And we wanted to restore it back to pre-2018 levels, which I can announce that we are doing with this budget. We wanted to manage our near-term borough debt to bridge the gap on the 2014 road bond. And when you see one of our goals that we have for the borough is to reduce our debt burden over time. And I'll explain how we'll do that. Importantly, invest in capital projects and open space and use our open space fund revenues in a prioritized and focused way. And this had a couple projects that were attached to it. The first being the prioritization project that we led with the council that Tom reported back on very recently. And then lastly, to identify new opportunities for borough revenue. And many of these items are to come in this calendar year or this fiscal year, but we started those discussions as we went through this year's budget. We have 3 determined goals. Number 1 is to become a regional leader in tax stability and operational efficiency. This is something that Tom talks about as part of our borough priorities, and we really aim to be one of the lower rated boroughs when we come to the municipal tax rate around, and I think that's achievable. Number 2, to improve the borough's debt service level and bring it solidly below 10% of our budget by 2032. But importantly, there's an inflection point in 2026 that we're trying to get to. And if we're able to get to that inflection point without layering out a lot of additional debt, we'll be in a much better fiscal position as we go forward. And then number 3, restore and increase our ability to invest in the borough through a pay-as-we-go strategy. And this is very much linked to number 2. As you'll notice in this year's municipal budget, we're pushing nearly $2 million of annual debt service. And that's a number that I'm looking personally to improve. Next slide, Tom.
If I can just stick in there a minute.
Go ahead.
Talking about the cash for capital projects, I think, the goal is to not have to bond in the future and try and get that account up so that we can use that money, the capital fund money. So I just wanted to make that a little clearer.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's critical. So how is this achieved? And I've talked about this a lot from this position, but also internally. We introduced a zero-based budgeting scenario, which is used by many commercial entities, which is not used very often in the private sector. Tom embraced this year, and so did Leslie. And I would have to say we're quite successful in really looking at the way that we're spending within the borough and focusing our spend where our priorities are. We're going to have further steps to implement this in the 2023 budgetary cycle, which will even help us to refine this further. We've gone through a process to prioritize our spending based on council and resident priorities. And this goes back to the prioritization project that we undertook as the council, but also the survey that Tom reported back on recently in regards to what the borough's residents' priorities were. And then execute a debt reduction plan to minimize new debt and target around $500,000 of new debt. And as long as we're able to achieve this, and it may not always be possible on an annual basis, and the biggest bogey that we're looking in the headwind that Al will talk about next is this dam project. But if we can do that, we'll be in a very good fiscal place once we emerge in 3 or 4 years.
That's DAM.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Mayor. That could have sounded very inappropriate if that context was not given. The dam by the Borough Hall, the DAMN. So Al, it is yours. Next slide, please.
Great. So one thing we wanted to make sure we did was set this in the, make sure that this budget is placed in the proper fiscal environment and the budget environment that we exist in right now. Now, some of this is particular to Bernardsville, but a lot of it is just sort of state of the economy right now and factors that will affect how we're thinking about this budget. And I think this also, to Chad's point, really gives even more credit to the work that Tom, Leslie, and the team have done, because there were significant headwinds that we were facing as a community. Stagnant state aid, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but state aid has been at best flat, but really, if you do it as a sort of percentage of what we had truly supposed to be getting for the last 13 years, has actually in a way been going down because we haven't been getting the state aid that we should be getting from the energy tax credits that exist. Steady debt services have increased throughout the next decade. Higher costs, which I think everybody knows due to inflation, building materials, diesel, fuel, et cetera, all are affected by the significant inflation that are experiencing in the country right now. The pandemic negatively affected revenue sources. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then, of course, concerns about labor wages, worker shortfalls, rising cost of benefits, et cetera. That being said, there are some positive tailwinds that are working in favor of the borough. We had a positive valuation this year, which we're going to go into a little bit more detail on. The zero-based budgeting approach that Chad talked about, very nicely, that we took this year, that really looked almost line by line at the at the borough budget and ask departments what they truly need, not just necessarily based on what was there before. We had additional funding from the American Rescue Plan that communities I know in New Jersey received. Redevelopment initiatives have been positive from a valuation standpoint. We obviously are working to alleviate a lot of our obligations from a fiscal standpoint, and then leveling off the 2014 road and bond schedule that'll happen over the course of the next 2 years. As one thing I'd last say, like Chad he referred to a specific project. We figured out a lot of ways to pay specific projects in, I would say, smart and innovative ways. For the new dam project, we are obviously looking at the use of the recreation funds, and also, really trying to make sure that we are, doing everything we can to not necessarily just spend less, but reprioritize our spending in a smart way that are recognizing not only what we're up against as a community, but also ensuring that the priorities that the community have told us on council and the mayor are realized in this budget.
Really well said, Al. Next slide.
Thanks, Chad.
So the bottom line is we're going into this fiscal calendar year in this budget. There's no tax increase. The rate is the same in 2022 as it was in 2021. And this is something that I know Tom worked really hard at, achieving the community priorities that we needed to include in this budget from a spending perspective, all while we improve the borough's capital position. And with that, I'll say congratulations to Tom and Leslie, and I'll turn it over to Tom to finish the presentation.
Well, really thanks to Leslie, who checks in every day, make sure we're on target, and the guidance from everyone on the finance committee. So let me start by, I always feel a little guilty by pointing this out, but I think it's a reality that we have to explain, that although you receive a property tax bill from the borough, only about 22 cents or $22 on $100 belongs to us. We are obligated by law to collect taxes on behalf of all the other entities that are allowed to tax in the state of New Jersey within our boundaries. Not only do we have to collect it and distribute it on behalf of these other entities, in the event that there's a tax appeal, someone appeals their taxes for prior years, we're on the hook for paying that. We can't reach back and ask those entities to reimburse us either. So that kind of makes this aspect of our fiscal operations makes the budget for us a little more challenging than some of the other entities that the public may watch budget presentations from. The budget, in terms of actual numbers, is reduced slightly by 187,000, but that had a lot to do with the sale and purchase of 271 Minebrook Road in last year's budget, where it was just a matter of how we financed the sale of the residential portion of that property. So we had to pay for that and then brought it in as revenue. But technically the budget is reduced. This slide indicates the difference in the tax levy. So if you combine the borough and the library, which are essentially linked, we're increasing the overall levy from $11.3 million to 11.8, and due to new construction, substantial improvements, and then the overall increase in the value of property in the borough, we were able to maintain a stable tax rate. I just wanted to paint a picture to explain where our revenue comes from besides just the local tax rate, which is 73%. I think this is something we can all, the prior year surplus is something we should all take a little pride in and congratulate the department heads for being such good managers of the budgets they're given, because a substantial portion of this reflects money not spent. We always have to budget for emergencies. We could always have a horrible winter. Stuff happens, but beyond budgeting for those things, there are just things that we're able to do without sometimes. And kudos to the staff for being diligent there. Energy receipts, that represents state aid. Delinquent taxes is if we can't collect everyone's taxes in 1 year, we obviously do our best to collect them the following year and are pretty successful. And that always makes up a percentage of revenue. Then we have fees, permits, fees, and licenses. We are not allowed to anticipate more than we realized in the prior years. COVID has actually created some complications with that because we've seen substantial reductions in a lot of our revenue items, such as recreation and construction and parking permits and just overall court permits for 2 years where no one was driving anywhere. So so it created a bit of a challenge to work within that. I hope I don't regret saying this, but I'm pretty confident that that picture is going to improve next year. And then other miscellaneous things are grants that we didn't expect, things like that. This gives you an overall sense of where we spend our money, where it goes. One of the things that we did this year is we provided a narrative explaining each and every line item to the Finance Committee. Finance Committee is interested in having that document made available prior to budget adoption. And so you can see exactly when I say all public safety, for example, well, that includes contributions to the rescue squad, the fire department, police, plus OEM. So you'll be able to digest where all that goes. And I'm also, I really have to point out this reserve for uncollected taxes again. You can see what a big chunk of our pie that is. That's the money we have to set aside in the event we do not collect 100% of taxes so that we can pay the school district, the county, and those other entities that, again, make up over 70% of the tax dollar that we collect. So we have to be ready to not collect all of that. So that is a big chunk of our budget, and I think it's always worth pointing that out. So when Councilman McQueen said that 12% of our debt is of our budget is debt, that's diluted in this pie chart because we included the reserve for uncollected taxes. We had a very good year, 2 years actually, in terms of valuation growth in the borough. We were on a bit of a decline. And then after 2020, it started popping up. So between 20 and 21, we saw almost $60 million in growth. This year, we saw $88.8 million in growth, which is a very good sign for our community that it remains very desirable. And again, not all of this is just the rise in the market. A good portion of it has to do with people undertaking the types of improvements that require actual construction permits. And then also we did have some new construction going on this year as well. One of our disadvantages at the moment is that so people can sometimes compare their tax bills in their community to another community, but it's important to understand that when a municipality looks at its overall valuation and creates a tax bill, in some municipalities, this pie chart is different. So some areas might have a bigger piece of the pie is commercial and industrial or apartments. Ours is very heavy on the residential side, but we are working very hard to spur redevelopment so that fewer single-family homes bear the burden of the residential tax pie. So that is a challenge for us, but we have good plans in place. As Councilman Ruggiero pointed out, we are on our 13th year, and we just got the certification today. We were kind of hoping against all hope that maybe this year it would be a little better, but no, 2022 state aid is going to be the same as it's been. And as you can see, it's declined from back in 2008. State aid represented 12% of the borough's revenue, and now it's down to 6%. And I didn't calculate what percentage it is in 22, but we may actually now be below 6%. I know there's some pending legislation that mayor and council supported, but the league is pushing hard to revisit how state aid is calculated. But this is not tenable. The state has to address this incredible lag in support for our community, not just our community, but others. I pointed out before that we've seen declines in construction fees, obviously interest on investments with near zero interest rates, court fines, parking lot. We were fortunate to have a hotel occupancy fee, which from the Bernardsville Inn, but that's nearly zero these days due to COVID. So we think there are opportunities to have improvements here. And if we can get the state to adopt that law that's pending or that legislation that's pending, those are two hopeful things for future budgets. One of the things we were very committed to doing is investing in a community. So we are going to continue within this budget without increasing taxes, the tax rate, with a pretty aggressive road improvement program, about $800,000 in improvements beyond, in addition to a $300,000 grant. We are moving forward on implementation of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We will, in the coming weeks, say maybe next month or early May, we should have some concept plans and estimates to really get rolling on some of these things. I'm looking forward to that conversation. And then the standard day-to-day stuff, like we have to maintain our servers, the heavy equipment like leaf collectors, our radios, our radar monitoring systems, things that make the neighborhoods safer. All these things have to be adjusted. But I will point out that aside from the road, this $40,000 down payment on the road improvement program, all of this is being funded by cash without debt. So we are well on the road to a pay-as-you-go system. We just need to get, once we get the roads up to the shape we want them, then we're slowly going to migrate into having our roads as part of the pay-as-you-go system. That's the goal. And we would be, I'll say we will be in rare company if we can achieve that.
And if I could just put an emphasis after what you just said, Tom, I know this is something we spent a lot of time talking about at the Finance Committee. When a borough can get into a pay-as-you-go scenario, it doesn't kick the can down the road further. You know, we experienced a $300,000 increase in our debt service expense this year because of previous debt taken by previous councils. So it's my number one priority. I think it's pretty close to the top for everyone on the Finance Committee to get into a pay-as-you-go scenario.
Okay, and so this is the summary. Chad, do you want to
no, please
pick it up from here?
Please do.
Okay, so just to summarize, and this is just introduction, by the way, the public hearing will be on April 25th, and more information will be shared with the public to get acquainted with it, and I'm available for any phone calls or questions. But for now, you know, the property tax is going to remain flat. We have some challenges, but also some opportunities. Technically, the budget's being decreased, but it's at 16.8 million. The borough remains a great place for people to call home and make investments in their properties. We are focusing on the priorities that council has identified broadly through its prioritization exercises and through the surveying of the community, and that's where we are funneling our primary investments. And we are hoping that next year we might have some progress on state aid, which will provide some further stability. So that's it for now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tom and Chad and Al. It was a pleasure to serve on the Finance Committee with you. Al, I can't believe how quickly you hit the ground running and learned what you needed to know. It's not, understanding municipal budgets is not an easy thing. It's very different than a private sector budget. So thank you both for all the time you donated to this project, and Leslie and Tom for your expertise and amazing spreadsheets.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
And I hope the public takes some time to read the narrative that will be in next week's meeting. It's really well written. Tom spent a ton of time.
Yeah.
So it really helps to explain, if you want to understand the borough, how we do our finances, what our finances mean today, tomorrow, in the future. It's a great document to spend 10 minutes to read.
And I assume that this PowerPoint will be on the website.
Yes.
And, you know, any other documents that we need to help the public be ready for the public hearing. So,
And Mayor, I know it was your goal, and Chad as our chair, and Tom and Leslie, to make this a really transparent budget. And you guys have, in my estimation, done a great job with that. You're right, it has been an eye opener to see how the municipal budgets come together. It's been a great learning process, and it's been great to be part of it. But I also know you're doing a lot to make sure that the public has, can take as deep as a look as they want to, both through this, through the actual budget, and the narrative that you're going to be rolling out. So likewise, highly encourage the public to take a look at that and ask any questions.
thank you. All right, Chad, would you?
So with that, I move that resolution 2022-88 be adopted, and a public hearing on the 2022 municipal budget be held on April 25th, 2022 at 7 p.m. I can't speak this evening.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Ambelang,
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara.
Yes.
And again, thank you for an excellent presentation. I hope people will take time to either play the video and listen to it, or go online and look through the documents. And moving on, my update, March 15th, I attended Community in Crisis, had a youth substance use prevention coalition. They are doing incredible work on trying to stem the opioid and especially fentanyl use by young people. So they have a whole coalition working on that. We also had a meeting of the full Downtown Redevelopment Committee. So it was good to get everyone together again and get an update on where we are in our redevelopment project. And just while we're on that subject, there's a couple of, I think, misconceptions about our redevelopment project. The redevelopment project for Quimby, we have the council declared that, along with the planning board, an area in need of redevelopment without condemnation. I think some people have been hearing that we might be condemning property. We are not. In order for that to happen, the council would have to come back and redo the area in need of redevelopment as an area in need of redevelopment with condemnation. And we have not done that, and it is not on our agenda to do it anytime soon. So just if you have heard any of that, and the Palmer project is a totally separate project from the Quimby lane. And the only thing we have done on the Palmer project is asked Topology to do an investigation to see if it can be called an area in need of redevelopment or not. We have no agreements, no financial investments, nothing with the Palmer properties right now. So hopefully, if people have questions, they will call Borough Hall and get correct information on either of those two projects. On March 16th, we had our first in-person meeting of the Somerset County Office on Aging Advisory Committee. That was at the Bridgewater Senior Wellness Center, which is a gorgeous facility. I thought the one we had in Basking Ridge was nice, but this one is really incredible. It was great to see the seniors back using the facility. They are doing a survey on senior needs, and I will probably put the link to that in my next newsletter, so we get some of our residents' input. I did on the 17th, I met with several Somerset County Park employees to talk about trails. And Diane, I have to give credit to, had a wonderful idea. And I'm going to follow up on it by creating a mayor's ad hoc committee who will serve, I guess it's kind of trail monitors to regularly inspect the trails, since we're going to be adding more, and mapping them out, getting descriptions of them, so that people have accurate information about the trails. And I talked to Bob Markowitz today about that, and he thought it was a great idea. So it'll really be a big help to recreation to have people committed to monitoring the trails, making sure they're taken care of. So we're going to work out the details of that. Diane already had some people interested. So I think that'll really help us in getting our trails really well organized and making sure they're safe and they're clean. I attended the grand reopening of the Senior Wellness Center in Basking Ridge on the 18th. Again, it was great to see the seniors. Must have been 30 of them that came out for lunch. I got a tour of the kitchen and how they do their Meals on Wheels, which is a very impressive operation that they do there. I think every day they send meals out, and then they serve a hot meal 3 days of the week for lunch. I actually registered there since I am a senior citizen. So if you're, I think it's 65, if you're over 65, you can register, and then you'll know all the events and activities they're having there. So if you know someone, have them sign up. I attended a Stigma-Free Initiative Committee meeting. We're still working on a conference in May, putting the agenda together. As soon as I have that, it'd be great and it's really open. It's not just for professionals. It's for the public or anyone that's dealing with anyone with mental illness or substance use disorders. So I think it'll be a really good conference. They'll having the social worker that works with the police in Bridgewater doing a presentation. So there's some really good information to be had from that. We also had a housing committee meeting. I had a Mayor's Wellness campaign team for the Shamrock Shuffle on the 19th. Incredible amount of people came out for that. It was just so exciting to see so much of the community involved in that. It was a great day, a lot of fun. I think people are just so happy to be back out and doing things. I met with, actually, Jack, Tom, and I met to talk about the train station lease. So we're moving a little forward on getting that done. I think it's in Jack's report. On the 22nd, Congressman Malinowski came here to review the Boylan Terrace walkway project. We also had, Tom was there, Doug Walker, Paul Ferriero, and Bob Brightly, to show them the plans, what we want to do with that project. For those that in the public who don't know, we were able to get $1.4 million in federal funding, which is not a grant, it's actually coming out of the federal budget to finance the walkway from Boylan Terrace down to the train station. So we are very excited about that project.
Mayor, can I ask a quick question about that?
Yeah.
So I know, and this is going back all the way to when I started in council, we did engineering, we had a plan.
Yes.
We're essentially ready to put shovels in the ground on that project as soon as we find a contractor, right?
Pretty much so. And the reason that we got approved was because it was a shovel-ready project. You know, it wasn't a pipe dream kind of thing. We had the engineering done. So right now we're just, actually I just reached out to the Congressman's office today to find out how the money flows.
Okay.
You know, because as soon as we know how we get the funding, I'm not sure if they just are going to write us a check out of the budget or if there's paperwork we have to do. So as soon as we know how we get the funding, we can start working on putting the bid together.
Great. So I'd like, if we can, Mayor, for next meeting, can we put that plan back on our agenda? Because I know, I also remember there was a topology report with ancillary projects that may also be along with that project that we may want to move forward if we're going to have shovels in the ground and equipment over there.
Yeah, and we talked, yeah, we did. We talked about other.
I think there was a dog park in mention. There were some things that, so if Anthony, could I ask you to pull up those documents and
Sure.
maybe put them on our agenda for our next meeting so we can revisit them, and let's move that project forward. It's wonderful.
Yeah, very exciting. I did manage to talk to some of the residents over in the neighborhood there, and they're excited too. And there will be lighting. I know some people had a concern about it being dark, you know, at night, but it's going to be lit. It's going to be very visible. I think it'll just make such a great improvement to that area.
Yep.
And it'll be safe. And actually, we were talking about not just people coming from that neighborhood down to the train station and the business district, but also people on the other side getting to the ball fields.
Yes.
It's a great shortcut without having all that traffic on Mount Airy Road. So I think, you know, you could park at the train station and walk to the Kiwanis. So I think it's going to be terrific. And
It's a huge asset to our town.
Yeah, definitely. We also got our banner and the plaque from the New Jersey Healthcare Quality Institute for the Bronze Award that we got. Bob Markowick took the banner and is going to hang it at the Polo Grounds. We're going to do a little photo op for the newsletter for New Jersey Healthcare Quality Institute. And we're real excited to have that. We're going to hang the plaque in Borough Hall. So that's pretty much all my report. I'm assuming, Tom, most of yours was the budget, right? But go ahead, your turn.
Yes, it was all budget all week, but I do want to thank the council because we had 5 personnel-related appointments that touched on all the committees, really, public safety and finance and personnel, and so you know it just shows up on the agenda, and you know you think we're filling slots on an org chart, but these were kind of delicate moves and kind of strategic moves, and it took a lot of communication and coordination with the budget. So really everyone had a hand and cooperated, and it was greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. Monthly reports. Did anyone have any questions on any of the reports that were in your packet? If not,
I'll move the monthly reports.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. You have Jack's report. I don't know if Jack, you wanted to add anything.
No, I have nothing to add unless anyone has any questions.
Okay. Public Safety Committee?
Sorry, that's me. But I had to drop off the meeting this week. So Tom or Diane, would one of you be able to give the update of the key aspects? I know we talked about Ridewise and Smart Streets and the 5 corners, or the corner 5 corners.
Diane, since so much of that overlapped with Public Works.
Yeah, I can talk about it when I get to Public Works, because we overlapped on a number of those things.
Okay, good. Finance, you've done your job.
We've done our job, and I'm here to say we will not meet until May.
Okay, personnel.
Personnel met last week, and we, as you saw in the resolutions, we talked about zoning, new hire in the zoning department, and also we also had to discuss briefly some of the issues with contract negotiations, but other than that, it was mainly the zoning officer.
Okay, thank you.
Did I miss anything, Tom?
No, you got it.
Okay, Diane, Public Works.
Okay. The 5 corners traffic control options, the 5 concept plans that were done by Bob Brightly, along with the Public Works Committee suggestions, were sent to Public Safety for their March 17th meeting for input and direction as to next steps. I'm on both committees, so we did discuss that there. And the borough engineer is going to provide guidance as to possible placement of the electronic advanced warning signs and pedestrian activation stations on Claremont Road going in both directions, among a few other things that we're still working out about that. Sidewalk priority list. Public Works is exploring the addition of sidewalks based on the Public Safety Committee's sidewalk priority list. In Public Safety, we discussed the priority list for a while. A meeting with the borough engineer will take place for the purposes of arriving at a priority list that both Public Works Committee and the council can agree upon as well as develop a timeline and cost estimate for the identified top priority sidewalks. The chief did break out the priorities in 3, like high priority, middle priority, and lower priority. And we're working on the high priority list right now and trying to pick municipal and county roads that would be, and have the engineer take a look at them to see which ones would be the most viable for us to move forward with first. Bernards Ave, the roadway plan and engineering was sent to New Jersey DOT for the required review and approvals, and we're looking to begin this project hopefully mid-June. Dam remediation, the presentations for both dam remediation and dam removal will be presented to the Public Works Committee at our April 19th meeting, and then to the full council and the public, hopefully at the April 25th council meeting. The pickleball court, pre-construction meeting is scheduled for March 30th, and the start of the construction will be determined at that time. The Polo Grounds walking path, still waiting for permits. And New Jersey American Water Company, the mill and pave restoration. A meeting was held with New Jersey American Water Company and CRS Contracting on 317. All milling and paving to be curb to curb on Timber Rock, Flintlock, Mine Mount, Stevens Street, Drive, and Anderson Hill, and the work is tentatively scheduled for during the spring breaks, the school spring breaks, but St. E's and the public schools are different weeks, so it's not definite yet as to which one it'll be. And finally, replacement of dead and declining ash trees at Cedar Lane and Sterling. The trees were removed last week, and replacement trees will be a mix of dogwood, redbud, and crabapple, and will be planted mid-April. That's it.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions for Diane? Okay, Land Use Committee, I believe we have a meeting Thursday with Advanced Realty to talk about Quimby. So that will be coming. Did anyone have any committee liaison report?
Yeah, I have 2, Mayor. So the planning board met last Thursday, and we heard the initial presentation on the application for Bistro 73. So if you're interested in the application, I think it's going to be reheard in a week from next Thursday or this Thursday. But I just like to make a comment. This is the first of applications that I've seen that have incorporated the new downtown zoning requirements the new outdoor dining requirements that were put in place, as well as the easement that we put in place for parking. And I'll just make a qualitative statement. I'm really thankful to see our businesses and our owners of the buildings in our town use these important new documents to improve their facilities and hopefully increase the number of patrons that they can get into their facilities. So I was really excited to see that application. At our next meeting as well, Mary Jane, the community in crisis is also being heard. And I know that was one of particular interest that you were looking to see them come. So that is actually officially on the docket for a week from Thursday.
Excellent. Okay.
The Recreation Committee met as well. And, you know, by the time of my statement today, I think all of the things that we discussed at that meeting have been announced. I know that Bob and his team were looking on getting many of the manuals out for the summer programs. And Bob, I don't know if you have anything addition to that, because the meeting is, I think, almost 3 weeks old now.
Is there?
I thought I saw him here.
Yeah, that covers it, Chad. Yep, take a look at those brochures for both the pool and the summer camps. They are open. A lot of people sign up the first week, but let's keep this momentum going. So those are both on our recreation website now, on the borough website. If you take a look at the new borough website, you can find a lot of the recreation postings, job postings, program offerings are much clearer, and you're able to click on them easily now. So check it out, the new website.
And you know, specific compliments to Bob and Leah. They the way that they're marketing the materials is much improved this year. I think demand has been great so far. Bob, I believe that you're exceeding enrollment expectations in just about everything, right?
Yep, going well so far. Everybody signed up early.
He's so modest. They're really doing well. So
I got my membership.
So congratulations to the rec committee, the rec team, and I think the ultimate beneficiary is our residents. So thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Chad. Anyone else have a committee meeting?
I can do Board of Health.
Yes.
So it's pretty, I see some of my fellow committee members on here. It was a pretty straightforward meeting. They were really just focused on the health officer's report, and there were kind of 4 topics she touched on. Food inspections have started for the year, and they made a note that that also includes outdoor facilities as well throughout the various boroughs and townships that are part of the part of our health committee. Second was that environmental inspections are already ongoing as well, inspections and reviews, that they're still doing COVID testing, and there's a lot going on the COVID front. I mean, despite the overall slowdown in COVID cases, they're monitoring the new strand in Europe. They're keeping, despite the number of testing that has dropped, basically they've seen a drop in total amount of testing throughout the boroughs involved. They are going to continue all testing. That being said, the location of testing, which has been ongoing at the Bernards Township Community Center, they're looking for a new location. So it's going to continue there for a little bit longer, but eventually they're going to announce a new location. I'm happy to share that when we get it. And then the fourth thing is just they announced that they're working on their annual report, and they should be rolling that out relatively soon.
Thank you. Are they still having any vaccination clinics?
I'll send to you, Mayor, the report that just came out. I do think that they are still having vaccination clinics, but through this report, they mostly focused on testing. So,
yeah.
But I know the chair recently sent around some additional information, so I'll make sure I send that through to the council.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else?
I do. Housing, Property Maintenance, and Zoning Enforcement Advisory Committee met on March 18th. The committee discussed additions and or changes to the borough's code dealing with residential leases. They reviewed the resident complaint form and procedures, and adding a complaint form tab to the housing section of the borough website for greater resident accessibility. And they still continuing discussion on a potential perimeter fence ordinance. And HPAC and open space did not meet.
Christine, you had something?
The Shade Tree Committee met on March 16th. Most members were there, and the guest was John McDowell. The main topic of discussion was the Sterling Road and Cedar Lane tree replacement project, which Diane already touched on from Public Works. So that project is probably almost finished now, if not done. And that was the Shade Tree Committee meeting.
Great.
Free trees are going to be given out this year also, but they are still working on a date for that.
Jay?
The Environmental Commission met, and a couple highlights. They worked on the community spring events that they can participate in, which includes the Egg Extravaganza on April 9th, the spring cleanup on Earth Day, and also getting involved in, just a reminder, the plastic bag ban goes into effect on May 4th. So remember to bring your bags to the grocery stores. They've joined the Regional Pollinator Working Group, which will help the Great Swamp Native Plant Sale, which is to occur on April 30th. They are working on maximizing the grants that they are applying for, which, again, I think we saw that last council meeting with one of the first applications that they've done. And finally, they're working on a plan to kill spotted lanternfly egg cases, which I'm going to be very excited to hear, because I know that's going to be a big issue for us next year. So
this is the season. Yeah, when the eggs are. I actually had a request from the Rebecca collection, because they were inundated last year with lanternflies, and several of the businesses that back up to the train station because of the tree of heaven that are all along the track. So I did reach out to New Jersey Transit, to our contact person, to see if there's something they can, they don't cut down, and they're not really trees. They call them trees, but they're more like bushes. They won't cut them unless they're dead or diseased. But they can probably get someone to scrape off the eggs, which would be a big help. So they're looking into that for me. So hopefully the downtown won't get as overwhelmed as it did last year. So thank you. And now we are back to Peter Roselli's request for the pop-up food pantry, which is actually a truck. So we'll be putting a truck at Kiwanis. Do you have a schedule at all, Peter, for when you're going to do that? Like it would be once a week, once?
So the way this works is the food supply changes week to week. I should qualify it, the perishable food supply changes. We have lots of canned foods from the state that have much more leeway as to when we have to hand them out, but the perishable food pretty much the same day or the day after, we want to be able to give that all out. So right now, Tuesday is the day that we're getting perishable food from Feeding Hands in Bridgewater and King's in Bedminster. We're hoping to get more relationships going in the area with King's in Mendham, Stop and Shop in Basking Ridge, obviously the ShopRite in Bernardsville is a big player. They allowed us to do a food drive there, but we're trying to walk before we run and make sure we have the manpower and the volunteers that we need. And obviously it wouldn't just be in Bernardsville, so there's other areas nearby that also need help. And they're a great partner. Feeding Hands is a great partner. They've been doing this for 8 years, and they haven't really reached up into this area because they've been based at Somerville for so long. They got wiped out during the flood, Ida, and the story got out on the news that they were right back giving the food out. And they didn't miss a day, even though they were wiped out. And it went national, and they ended up getting a bunch of donations. So, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. And all that to say, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're just working with a really first-rate group of people, volunteers that want to help communities. So I'd say Tuesdays right now. Because of where Kiwanis Park is, we've also worked with the Catholic Church, the Sacred Heart Chapel. It's right in the heart of the neighborhood where the people need the food the most. They're busy, right? So they can't always accommodate our needs. So ideally, using their building is great, but that's not something that we can count on because of all the different uses that they have for that building. Working out of a truck is great in the warmer weather. If this continues and we still want to keep doing this, at some point we'd look for a place that we would be willing to pay rent for. We have money in the budget for that. Or do some kind of co-op arrangement with somebody to let us use it, give them all the insurance certificates that they would need, just so that we could be inside in the cold weather. Or if it's raining, the people are still hungry on those days. It's just not as easy to hand it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Chad, you are probably the most knowledgeable about Kiwanis. So
Yeah, I mean, so the lack of a schedule is concerned. So Kiwanis Park, especially between, well, we open next month in a few days. Between now and August, Monday through Friday, 4 through dark, and all day Saturday and Sunday, you have a hard time finding a parking spot in that lot.
So timing, would you be there?
We would definitely be done before 4 o'clock, based on the small little sample that we've had already. I'll be honest, because we did the cafe for so many years, we got to know the community. We know Junior at Minos, and he has his finger on the pulse of who needs help. So he's introduced us to a couple of people who are influencers in the community, and including Pastor Dan, who I'm sure you know, but he, I guess, had a family problem overseas. I don't know. I haven't seen him in a while. So we're not looking to do anything except help. But yeah, we could definitely be in and out in an hour based on what's happened. So be out by 3, set up at 2, be out by 3. All we've done so far is ask them to send out a text to their distribution list. We still have to sign people in when they come to get the food, but only have to do that once, and then we can check the laptop computer and we know who's registered. Obviously for the state, they need to know that. Yeah, it's a great thing about the mobile technology that we have. We can pop it up and pack it up quickly. We have 4 people on our payroll that all speak Spanish, that are all part of our pastoral team. I don't, but I can lift stuff, so I'm still useful.
And is this something that is only serving the local community, or do you get folks that drive distances to come?
Somerville has been in operation for 8 years, so they have more of a reputation. And actually, they're meeting in Bridgewater right now, but they're looking to get another property. So, yeah, they have more people that drive. Because we're new to this area, we don't have that reputation. Once we're operating on the property in Basking Ridge at the Deaconry, we're going to renovate the barn that you see from Valley Road. I'm guessing you probably know that building. That will be a place where people will come and pick up food, or where we could take the bigger deliveries. But for now, we're keeping the food cold at the Deaconry and then bringing it out when we have it and distributing it. And
mostly the local people in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and it's just been through word of mouth at this point. And we're open, to any pocket of population that needs it. I'm just familiar with that one, so that's where we started.
Yeah.
I'm happy to work with a point person on your team. If we get Thursday delivery, we could be there by 2, be gone by 3 to 3:30 the latest. I don't want to interfere with the Little League or anything going on. In the off season, I don't know if you use it September, or October, November, in those months.
We do.
Yeah, I would assume you would, but we could still do it midday and still be effective.
The only time that location isn't populated is essentially November, December, January, February, and the first week of March.
Great.
Yeah. But is that, that would work if they were there by 2 and out by 3:30 in terms of the ball program?
Yeah, in terms of the ball program, yes, but there's also a park there that I know is quite busy. So my concern, look, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's something that we should do and find a location for. I'm not sure if a park where folks are going to enjoy a park atmosphere is the right place to do it.
Understood.
That's there.
Understood.
Anyone else? Comments?
I was thinking, who owns the parking lot across from Sacred Heart on Bernards Ave?
They do.
I never see that parking lot full. So could you use the space there?
They have funerals. They do events there at times that would cause that to be full. And no, so far that hasn't been offered as an option. But if you have, if you know, I haven't like scoured to see what properties might be available to rent, you know, or any of those kind of, you know, research. And I just would rather work with you on what you think is the best place to do it.
And I'm thinking,
however you choose, you know, yay or nay is fine. You know, we'll keep looking. But like I said, I've known Kevin a long time. We saw each other, and I mentioned what we were doing, and Kiwanis Park as a place that people could walk to.
Yep.
But I understand the issue with the park being there too. So
Well,
however you choose.
but if you were in the lot on the farther side away from the playground,
That's where we did go. We were in that far corner at the
Yeah.
back of the park.
because probably the playground would be, you know, preschoolers, because most kids are in school on a Tuesday till 3:30. They're not home till then.
Right.
So the only people that would be at the playground, I think, I haven't been there, would be preschool kids with their moms. So it wouldn't be just kids running wild, you know. So I think if, you know, I don't have a problem with it if you were as far from the playground as possible. Anyone else?
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
that
I was
sounds
just
good.
I
thinking,
agree
'cause-
with that, Amelia.
yeah, I mean, I think obviously during the summer when the kids aren't in school, that's a different story. But
Right.
what about the street that is on the other side of the park? That it's just, I mean, it just goes back into like nowhere. Is that, like I have people just park there on the side of the road. Do you know what I'm talking about?
on the
It's
other
like
side of the power
Bernards
station.
Ave.
Yeah, I do know what I thought of that too. You just keep going straight when you come up the hill
Right.
instead of making the left to go into the park.
That may be borough property. Because I think the borough, doesn't the borough lease it to the electric company?
Probably an easement. Jack, do you know that?
No, I'm not sure. It
So
probably
Jack,
is-
as you're coming up Bernards Ave around the corner past the property that we just passed the resolution for, and you bear to the right instead of going left on Pill Hill.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can check though.
Oh, I was just thinking of something else
Yeah.
and something
Um,
that's near there. Cause I think, I
yeah.
mean, even the train station is far. I think
Is
it's
it
too far to
fair
walk,
for us,
especially without the,
Peter, is it fair for us to take this and let us talk
Of course.
with the borough and find a good location? It may be Kiwanis. I think that this is an important thing to serve the community, but I'd like to find the ideal spot for it.
Yeah, I think if we talk to, you know, John McDowell and kind of find out where we
Yeah.
have a piece of property, that might work.
Couldn't agree more. Happy to do that.
Okay.
If we could get a free pass for this Tuesday, that would help.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, this
Okay.
Tuesday's fine. Yeah, perfect. And yeah, that's
Everybody
fine.
okay with that?
Yep,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why
Anthony
don't
has-
we get a gauge how it goes on, like, because most of the people walk, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of cars entering the parking lot. These are people who are walking to
Or
get
bike-
there.
or bicycle.
Usually with a stroller and 2 little toddlers and a pregnancy.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
And we know
And
exactly
then
what they want.
Right, and those are probably a lot of the people that are using the playground in the daytime as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
even if you, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with you setting up in the playground where those tables are to kind of, you know, set up there if you didn't want to use the truck.
Well, I think the only potential issue there is, you know, you don't know who's coming to get the food. So I think the parents would be a little reluctant to want to mix those 2 crowds.
Yes.
So if we could
Yeah.
keep them as far away as possible, not, you know, not to be suspicious, but it's just the world we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids are unsupervised in that area. There are quiet
Right.
streets.
Yeah.
And again, not knowing if somebody's coming from out of town, it may be residents, which is fine, but it may not be.
Yeah.
I'd rather not create a a situation that we don't need to create.
Well, I really got aware of this when I served on the board at the YMCA in Basking Ridge, and just how hyper vigilant you have to be anywhere there's going to be children. You know, could be 1 in 1,000 people that come with a bad intention. Anyway, sorry, don't want to go.
I think your thought process is exactly right. I think we'll find a solution. I think absolutely you can use it for the near term. And, maybe we can meet and reconvene at our next council meeting in 2 weeks and see if we can have a solution it's more permanent.
So
if it's there or not.
You will be there tomorrow, right? Yes, tomorrow?
Yeah, that's okay. Yes, that's the plan.
So probably tomorrow and the following Tuesday, and that'll give us some time to see if there's an alternate or to see how well it works there, if there's any conflicts.
Great.
Good.
I'm willing to accept that. Is everyone else?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. And that following week, the 12th, is just spring break for Bernardsville schools.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Something before then. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very
Peter.
much, Peter.
Thanks so much.
Good luck.
And thank you for what you do, Peter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is Ed English's request to hold a Bernardsville Farmers Market. Do we even need to discuss this?
Yes. No, we don't need to discuss. Yes, you can hold it.
You're looking good, Ed. You feeling good?
Yes, better every day.
That's good. Glad to hear it. Other than, I guess we have to talk about the distillery. That was the new thing. As far as the dates for the farmers market, they're the same as they've always been. And, I think everyone is really happy with how it works and how you do it.
And the hours are the same too.
Yeah.
So the distillery is, the Farm Bureau recommended them to us because they grow all the grains that they use in their product. So they're really a Jersey distillery, as it was years ago when Jersey was king of peach brandy, but that was eons ago. But I think they're a good mix for us because they're a farmer. And because they got recommended. And last year we did well with the wine merchant we had. So I think we could continue again with an alcohol product, and it will be handled well. We just need to expand the ordinance, because when we amended it last year, the year before, we added wineries. Yes. ABC regulations do permit distilleries to operate in a similar fashion. So if you're in agreement, I will draft an ordinance for introduction at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Everybody okay with that? Yes. Okay.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Thank you.
Can I just ask one question, Mayor?
Yes.
And this is a question for Ed. Look, you do a tremendous service to this community every year with the farmers market.
Sure.
You spend a lot of hours doing this. This is something that I would like to see. It's becoming a staple in this town. Live beyond your service. Have you begun to think about what this needs to look like someday if you're not, willing to spend the countless hours you do to do this every year?
Absolutely. I think I'm aware of that I used to work for Merck, and we had big problems with succession planning. So every day I think of it. Yeah. And so the reason I had so many volunteers this year was for just that reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for thinking about that as well, Ed, because I think that's an important part. And if the borough needs to take a different or a more proactive role, or downtown Bernardsville, we can find some solutions to make sure this sustains itself for years.
Yeah, it's a wonderful program, and we are so grateful for all the time you and Marilyn have committed.
Yes.
to this.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, Madeline, not Marilyn. I get it. You know what I meant. Okay, thank you, Ed. I had a letter in correspondence from Pastor Beth at St. Bernard's Church, just asking to consider, I guess, for a resolution about a statewide reparations task force. I had sent it on to Jack just for his review. Jack, you had a comment of what's, you want to?
Yeah. In the past, the councils have taken the position that they would not
comment on things over which they didn't have jurisdiction. That was just a policy adopted by past councils. This council could certainly change that policy if you wished.
So I give it to you for consideration. Any input?
I agree with Jack.
I typically have comments on just about anything, Mary Jane.
But that is a good point of that policy does make sense because it's really, I don't know how we could, how much influence we could have. If we,
but I think there are things that as policymakers and as council that we deliberate on, but we also are elected officials in this town that are entrusted with the success of this town. So from my perspective, making comments, even where we don't have jurisdiction, even though they're not binding, is an important part of my duty. So I'm perfectly willing to make comments, even where I don't have jurisdiction, understanding that there's no teeth to my comments other than my opinion.
Diane, you said I didn't get your.
No, I said I agree with Jack and I agree with the policy that we've held so far.
Okay.
I'm not lobbying for that policy, just explaining it.
I know.
So what we're saying is that our policy has not been to comment on this.
Historically, that's always been the policy. Unless there are things that directly affected municipalities, the council would not take a position.
Okay. Chad, are you against that? Because it seemed like you were. Okay.
Hey, let me clarify that. So are you defining a municipality as things happening within the borough of Bernardsville?
No.
Are you broadly, because we do a lot of comments thing happening at the state level. Is that your implication or is it more?
But those are things that have a direct impact on municipalities in general.
Yes, so we're asking the state to do something that will ultimately either benefit us at some point. Those are things we've commented on.
Right. For instance, the example Tom gave earlier about the bill to recalculate state aid.
Right.
That's the kind of issue that councils have commented on.
Right. I mean, I'm personally more comfortable. I mean, I think our mandate is passing resolutions, ordinances that deal with the jurisdiction of Bernardsville. That's why, even though it was a state bill being considered, it would directly affect our budget, the budget that we all just had our first hearing on when we passed that resolution. And likewise, why we also did not take up any resolution or movement on the Ukraine issue a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And so I just feel that's what I'm comfortable from a consistency standpoint, is staying within our jurisdiction.
Okay, well, that's a good point. Everyone agree?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I will respond to Pastor Beth. Any unfinished business? Yes.
Actually, Mayor, I found your the answer to your question about the vaccine clinic.
Oh,
So
okay.
if I could just add it real quick for the record. So the vaccine clinics are continuing. They're 3 to 5 p.m. at St. James Church on South Finley Ave. Excuse me. There's actually tomorrow a vaccine clinic for 12 and up or 18 and up, depending on which vaccine it is. And then on April 11th, there's a pediatric clinic. And you can sign up for these at the Bernards Township Health Department website, which you could find on any of our borough websites. So just wanted to make sure I submitted that for the record.
Okay, thank you.
There's one more item on our agenda
about
the parade, the Little League parade. I think it was added later.
Yes, that came in later, which is, oh yeah. 10E. Oh, it's actually.
Is that the new business?
It's after new business. We had unfinished business.
Did we have any resolution on next council meeting? Are we meeting in person or are we meeting?
Maybe Tom, can you give us an update on where we are? I saw the owls. They are very cool.
Yes, discussed with Chris, and we think we can be ready for the first meeting in April. So it's council's call when you want to meet. Just be patient. We might have to work out some kinks once we go live.
Do a hybrid, right?
Yes, do a hybrid.
So public could be on remotely and we would be in person. Public can either be in person or remote.
Right. So actually the patients would be on a part of the public while we work through that a little bit.
Yeah.
I won't
Okay.
be at the next council meeting, so I'll be away because it's spring break for the kids. So I won't chime in here.
Okay, that's what is the date of that, Anthony?
April 11th.
11th?
Yeah, 11.
Are we able, I understand council members, obviously we want to be in person. If a council member cannot make the meeting, could call in, is that an option? And the reason I'm bringing this up is, you know, we're still, all of us are still operating underneath a public health emergency to an extent. You know, if you do get COVID, you have to quarantine for 5 days. Is there I'm not saying that, I don't know, is there a way to go about it so that members could still participate if there is a situation? However, maybe not vote. Voting would have to be in person, because very clearly, I think we want to make sure that we're incentivizing members of council to be there live if the public's going to be there live.
Yeah, I think there'd be no problem with a council member participating remotely without a vote. The ordinance currently allows council members to vote under two circumstances. One, if a special meeting is called on less than 10 days notice, or two, if there's not a quorum and a member's presence is required for a quorum.
Yeah, and I think the availability and the ability to be there remotely is important. I mean, look, I travel for work. I'm going to start traveling for work again. In the evenings, I can attend council meetings even if I'm in a foreign country.
Yeah, you know, and I think that's great that I just don't want it to be an easy, you know, I don't have to go kind of thing.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
I think that ability is important.
Yeah. I think as long as it's not abused and we have enough of us in person that are here, I'm okay with it.
And I'm okay changing the ordinance to make it a voting member.
I don't think we can we? Isn't that Open Public Meetings Act?
No, well, there's some confusion right now because the Open Public Meetings Act defines public meeting as being in person or by electronic means. So a lot of lawyers, including me, were surprised when the state came out with regulations allowing you to have remote meetings during the pandemic, because we always could have remote meetings before that. So everyone's looking for some clarification. Hopefully we'll get some clarification soon.
Okay. So it's our ordinance says you can't vote if you're remote unless there's a quorum or it's an emergency meeting.
That's right.
Okay.
And we can change that ordinance, correct, Jack?
That's right, unless we get something contrary from the state.
So I would propose that we change the ordinance to make it possible, and just look, there's an agreement that it's for times when you absolutely can't make it in person.
Can we do that for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Have the ordinance.
Well, yeah, introduce it anyway.
I can have a draft ordinance ready for your consideration for the next meeting. We should probably put it on for discussion and possible action, because you won't have seen it before introduction.
Okay.
And Tom, you and Chris would have the capability to do that. That'd be fine. I mean, I'm assuming if the public can participate hybrid, that council could in some respect.
Yes, we invested in these two pieces of equipment. Well, one piece of equipment, but two of them called an owl. And it's really interesting. And we're also purchasing monitors. So you can essentially get what you're getting here, what you're looking at now. But these owls just kind of zoom on to whoever's speaking, like 360, while also panning the whole room. So we know we could do it. We're just, we're still experimenting with it, but we have the equipment. The monitors haven't come in yet. So that's why I said I just need a little bit of patience, but I think we'll get there. We want to make it as seamless to do this as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll shoot for the 11th, but you let us know if that's, you know, if the monitors don't come in or there's an issue, then we can do the next. But sometime in April, we're going to do this.
Yep. Well, we also need to, in turn, because I've been talking, obviously we talked about this at the planning board. We have to talk probably at the next meeting as well about what the requirements are going to be for committees.
Well, we don't really have any control over the planning board. We can tell the advisory committees how to meet, but statutory commissions and boards like the planning board set their own rules. In fact, I just saw in the paper Homedale, the township committee adopted a resolution encouraging the planning board and board of adjustment to go back live, which they've refused to do to this point. So, but we can tell advisory committees how to operate.
Have the other committees been meeting in person yet? Planning board has not, have they?
They have not.
And Board of Adjustment has not?
I don't believe so.
So once we get this system up, both of them can meet in person. Yes? What about Shade Tree? Did Shade Tree meet in person? They did.
Yes.
Okay, or environmental, or is environmental meeting in person? Not
No.
yet. Okay,
Housing is not in person.
housing was not either, yeah. But at some point, I guess.
HPAC was in person.
Oh,
Last
okay. So I guess it's based on the comfort level of the members as to, you know, how we start working back into meeting in public.
Library was in person last year.
They're not now. We have always met
Yeah.
through Zoom this year so far.
For what it's worth, I think that the council's standing committees are quite effective
Yeah,
through Zoom.
yeah, I think that's, those are probably the best use of Zoom is for our committee, you know, the council committee meetings.
100%.
Yeah, it just, you know, it helps everybody's schedule work much better. So, okay, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed that it's all up and running, and it'd be great to be back. I got my my gavel ready. Anyway, okay, any new business? All right, then we have the road closing request for the Little League Parade, which was which day?
I want to think recollections is 23rd. Let me just double check though.
That sounds right.
It
For
says
the,
the
Yeah.
23rd on here.
Yeah, sorry.
8 to 11.
okay. And that happens every year. We do that.
It does. So what happens
Been
is
there.
Little League assembles. We have banners. They march. It's a big community day. We march into Kiwanis, where we have a little celebration to kick the season off. We usually have a pastor throughout the first ball, and it's a Little League tradition.
Yeah. And it's fine with the police. So.
Yep.
We just need to say yes. We're all good with that. I expect to see you all there.
Fine
You
by
know, I'll
me.
be there.
Okay, we are now at our second open session. So if anyone from the public would like to speak, please indicate by either your icon with the raised hand or wave if you can have a camera, and give us your name and address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes, and Anthony will time you. Would anyone from the public like to be heard? Anthony, you seeing anybody?
No, I don't see anyone.
I do not. Okay, I will close the public session. We are now going to have an executive session. Will we be coming out for any reason? So we will not come back, no action to be taken. So thank you to the public who came, and hopefully you will join us again. So do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make a motion to go to closed session.
And I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.